Well, welcome, Antonio, to the Flower Podcast. It's
Hey,
so great to
Scott.
have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I know that I have followed you on Instagram for a little while, and I always find inspiration mixed with information and a little bit of humor along the way. So always, many times I've been watching your reels, and I just chuckle to myself or actually laugh out loud. And so I've been looking forward to this interview. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So
Thank you.
I want to start at the beginning. So,
Okay.
how did you start getting into the world of flowers?
Oh, geez. Okay. So this goes way back. I mean, I've been gardening all my life. I was kind of an unusual kid. I was, growing flowers and gardening from grade school. And
There's
I
nothing wrong
remember
with that.
I know. No, I know there's nothing wrong with that. It was just, I guess I didn't realize it, but it was kind of, it must have seemed unusual to everybody. And I just remember my dad was I come from a long line of avid vegetable growers. So,
Okay.
that's kind of unusual. I just remember my dad, he had a huge garden, much larger than I have today. And, he would set aside a little parcel of land just for me. And it was there that I could choose to grow whatever I wanted. And rather than growing vegetables, I started growing flowers. And then over the years, I just started growing my own and growing more flowers and then selling them to neighbors. And then we had a roadside stand at one point. Then we were doing farmers markets. And then I actually graduated Teachers College in 2009, and finding a teaching job in 2009 was nearly impossible. Teaching, I know you're down in the States. I think teaching is a little bit more lucrative up here in Canada. So it was right after the 2008 financial crisis. That was it. So it was really tough as a graduate finding any type of job,
Right.
letting alone a teaching job. So then that's when I was like, oh, geez. I was eventually hired as a substitute teacher. And I was like, hey, what am I going to do for money in the summers when I'm not working? So I took my flowers to farmers markets all around Toronto. And then I had a florist walk through my booth and she's like, oh, where do you buy your flowers? I'm like, well, I grow them. She's like, oh, you grow them? She's like, have you ever thought of doing like wholesale and like selling to my shop? I have like a shop downtown. And I think, oh yeah, let's give that a shot. And that worked out really well because it was a huge time saver. I love wholesale. I don't have that connection with the customers anymore, but I love that. So that really took off. And then, like I was mentioning before we started, my niece started an Instagram account for me. And I didn't even know what Instagram was at that time. I was on Facebook and she said to me, you need an Instagram account. I'm like, but I don't even like Facebook. I'm like, why do I don't want more social media. And she's like, no, you don't get it. It's going to help you get the word out. And I'm like, okay. So then I just had more florists from Toronto being like, hey, can I buy your flowers? Can I get on your wholesale list? Can I get on your availability list? And it just sort of took off from there. And, yeah, now we have a website and yeah, like I had no idea that this would all go the way it did. It wasn't
Wow.
intentional. It just sort of one thing led to another. I just took like I said, just a knack and a hobby for growing flowers and turned it into a business.
So that's interesting that you mentioned earlier about your family with vegetables, because I know on social media sometimes you like to refer to team veggie and then team flowers?
So I'm obviously team flowers and my sister is team veggies. So she does all the vegetable growing that we do here, but she does not sell them like I do. So the vegetables, we have a big Italian family. So all the vegetables are just for us and our extended family. So
Really?
it's, yeah. So, and like we make our own tomato sauce. Like we don't actually buy in our tomatoes. Like she insists on growing like bushels and bushels of tomatoes. So we have so we need a year's worth of tomato sauce. So stuff like that. So in terms of like a true market garden that we're selling, it's my project, the flowers. So we sell the flowers, but yeah, Team Veg just grows for the family.
So
She
you
has a
are
job. She has a job like outside of the vegetables. So that's why for her, it's not. It's more of like a passion or a hobby for her.
Sure, sure. Wow. Well, like I said, it's always fun following along. I being that you're in Canada,
Mhm.
it's always interesting to me the differences in the growing seasons. I know, down here, like we just moved from Middle Georgia up to Nashville, and it's a little colder than I thought it was going to be, but it could just be the year. But anyway, I'm curious, how long is your growing season, and how do you extend that?
Yeah, so we start with tulips and daffodils in April.
Okay.
Um, but and that's actually quite early for us. So what I do is I plant half of our tulips, about half of them, under low tunnels. So and then I plant the other half like just sort of out in a they're in their bed but they're exposed with no low tunnel over them. Sorry, low tunnels. You know, like I think some people call
Yeah.
them caterpillar tunnels. I think or low
Right.
tunnels. Yeah. So that helps us to get tulips about a month earlier. So yeah, here we don't normally get tulips until May if I left them out. So I use the low tunnels. That helps me to harvest tulips, like Greg said, roughly half of them in April, so about a month earlier. It also helps to like sort of stagger the crop. So I'm not going like, oh, I've got thousands of tulips. How am I going to quickly get them,
Right.
to the florist? So it really helps to spread out the harvest. But most importantly, it just gets the season going, a month earlier. So we get tulips in April rather than waiting for them in May. So that's sort of like one trick for, colder climate growers. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, because I don't know a lot of people who try to stagger them like that. I think most people try to stagger them by bloom, having different varieties that bloom early versus late. But that's really a great idea because I mean, it's almost like 50-50. You can have two
Yeah.
different sets of, crops almost.
Yeah. And it helps because sometimes so if Easter is really late in one year, then you can kind of sort of they hit for Easter. It's perfect because that's a really big tulip um, date. And then the other thing is if you can time them for, of course, Mother's Day. So actually, I normally will do like a four rather than a 50-50 split. I try to do like a 40-60 split. So 40 under tunnels and then 60 out in the field because you sort of get the florists like hooked on them in April, and then they're like by May they're like, give me more, and it's like, okay, they're coming. So,
Well, especially for Mother's Day,
for Mother's Day, yeah.
yeah, that's like a brilliant idea. That's really great. So, you grow. So I was reading, and I can't remember if you said this already, but you grow on about a half an acre.
Yeah.
And so you must really make the most of that space with everything you
Mhm.
do. Is uh, I know a lot of people out there are in the midst of planning right now. I'm
Mhm.
seeing everybody on Instagram with their envelopes of seeds and their stacks
Yeah.
of seeds and shuffling seeds like cards and all this stuff. And I'm just kind of curious, since you've been doing this a little bit, did what suggestions do you have when it comes to like planning for, like, I don't know, space? Because obviously you maximize your space for doing what you do.
Yeah. You know what? Just being really super efficient with your space. In fact, I sort of have an Instagram story highlight about this.
Oh, really?
So yeah, if you go to my Instagram, I don't so like the little highlights are all like little tips and tutorials that I just started doing, and then everyone was like DMing me like, put those in your highlights, and I'm like, what does that even mean? So there's one I have about this, and it's like I'm so um, like everything is measured like 4 foot wide beds and an 18-foot walking path, 4 foot wide beds. It's like I really don't waste any space. I don't have space to waste. I don't really have this like grand farm. And that's another tip. Like I don't think people realize you don't really need this like really large farm out in the country. And as amazing that is, and that's something I'm working towards actually, you really don't need like acres and acres. And if you're really efficient with your space, you can actually get a lot out of half an acre. And then you use those tricks that I was mentioning with like season extension, using like tunnels to sort of get extra crops on the shoulder seasons at the
Sure.
beginning and at the end. Um, yes. Yeah, so it's just a matter of like being super efficient with your space, I think. And oh, and sticking to crops that you A, know you can grow really well, so you can get a really good quality product. And then B, growing things that are like super productive. So like production per square foot.
Mm-hmm.
Like it real like when I grow something new, I grow it, I test it. If it's not really productive, if I'm not getting enough stems per square foot, then it's gone. Like I'll stop growing it. And so I've sort of like honed my, my like core varieties that I will grow a lot of, and then I always grow some fun stuff that I try some new stuff every year.
So when you test something,
Mhm.
how much do you plant of something to test it? Because sometimes I always personally I'm like, I've done this before where I've planted this little bit of stuff to test it, and then I'm like, oh, it did really well. Then I plant a lot of it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't do quite as well. I'm
Oh,
like for you, I'm just
yeah.
curious. Well, what does a test look like?
Yeah, test. So I'll do like one flat or one tray of seedlings of anything that's new, and that's it. And so because I will go crazy and do a lot more than that, and I have to practice a lot of restraint. And I'm like, this is something new. I know it looks gorgeous online when you look at it in the catalogs,
Sure.
but like a tray is it because, like I said, we're so limited with space. I have to make sure it's going to perform well here. So yeah, a tray is all I will allow myself to do.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
how many different crops do you grow?
Oh gosh. Oh geez. Uh, it changes every. So it's a lot.
Just take a guess. Just take a
Oh
guess.
gosh, I don't. Oh my gosh. Again, because it even changes year to year. Like so, like I've tried hundreds of things, but I would say in a year it's maybe about 50 to 60 different things. No, yeah, 50. And then, the other 50 the following year. But our big thing is dahlias. So like I'm like a dahlia freak. Like I was growing dahlias as a kid, like before they were trendy. So you'll see a lot more dahlias sort of creeping up into the other beds. So that's our big thing. Dahlias is a big one. Zinnias are probably maybe the second biggest. And then roses are really big, and
Oh,
then like I
really?
said, and then yeah, we yeah, quite a bit of roses. I love roses. I had roses growing here even before I had like a cut flower business. So I've got rose bushes that are have been here for like 20 years.
Wow. Well, I'm really surprised because, when you're trying to get as much out of a half acre,
Hmm.
roses being permanent and they're always,
Hmm.
do you grow a lot of other perennial or other shrub type blooms?
Okay, so this is actually a really good. So the thing with the roses actually is like so per stem I can get more for them. So that's how they earn their keep here. So but yeah, they're not as let's say
Oh,
productive as zinnias, but you can probably get about three times as more for per
that's
rose
them.
stem, especially like if it's like Coco Loco or distant drums in the floor. So like, give me, they're like, I need that beige, I'll pay whatever. So that's how the roses earn their keep. That's actually a really good question.
Yeah.
Um, and then, sorry, what was the? Oh yeah, okay, shrubs. So yeah, so actually, this is actually a really good point, and this is something that I want to bring up. So growing foliage is really important. Like, and I don't think a lot of growers. So if there are any new growers out there, grow foliage. Plants start right away. The first thing you should be growing is shrubbery because it takes years to establish before you can get like a really good crop of
Right.
it. But grow like so like some of my most popular foliage is like thornless raspberry, and then nine bark, or sometimes called physocarpus
Mhm.
by its Latin name, and plant those. And I sell so much foliage along with the flowers. So when a florist will message me in a week and say, Antonio, I need like $400 worth of product this year, $400 worth of flowers. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'll be down in a couple days and deliver. And I'll say, hey, how about some foliage? So they'll be like, okay, yeah, I'll take like an extra 50 or $100 worth of foliage. And I tell new growers that all the time. I'm like florists, when they're ordering flowers, they're not ordering foliage like in lieu of flowers. Like if you present it, they'll order, their foliage on top of your flowers. So that's kind of like something I learned uh, early on, and that's something that's I think really important is don't forget about the foliage. Grow that foliage, like get it started, get it going, plant those bushes, and get them established, because that's like a long-term crop. Um, and like it's a little bit easier to grow because it's there for years, like it's earned its keep, and you know, you're not planting it every year, you're just sort of hacking away at it.
Well, too, I think sometimes you can get more than one wave off of it. You know, if you've cut it
Hmm.
earlier,
Yeah.
and then it reflushes out, and you may get a second or third cut off of it even.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, with the physocarpus, especially, yeah, you get that spring cut, and also when it's blooming, and then later in the season, you're cutting just the solid foliage, and you know, even that's like sort of sought after.
Sure. So, like with the Physocarpus, do you grow just the dark foliage, or do you grow like some different varieties?
I'm growing three different varieties. So the standard dark foliage, this smaller dark foliage.
Oh yeah,
There's a yeah, there's a few of them. It's called the Little Devil, or Tiny Wine is another one of them. And then I grow also, the third one is that chartreusey green
mm,
foliaged variety.
I love that one.
Uh, I know it's so good, and I love when the seed heads turn sort of like that rosy color. Yeah, and it looks so good with the green foliage, that contrast.
Just
Oh, it's
pops.
like, yeah, it's amazing. I forget what that variety is called, but it's like a
Yeah, I don't remember
chartreuse,
either.
yeah, chartreusey variety.
Yeah, I love that one. You know, and that's one of those things that I for people that wonder a lot of times, you know, why buy local? To me, that is a great example because you know you can get. I know I've seen other farms that will ship nine bark and things, and the dark foliage seems to ship really well. But that fabulous chartreuse one, a lot
Hmm.
of times when you pull it out of the box from somewhere else, or you know you shipped it in, it gets a
Hmm.
little bit bruised. I think it shows every blemish almost because of that bright color,
Yeah,
and it's just fabulous. And I wish we
yeah.
could grow more of that down here. I think you can grow it here in Tennessee, but down farther south, that chartreuse green doesn't last very long. It gets too dark. It's like it doesn't hold up super well.
Oh, okay.
But at least for me, it didn't. But
Yeah,
I know up north where you have those cooler nights, the colors they just pop, and it's just
yeah.
so incredible.
It's so gorgeous.
Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that too, because you know that's
Yeah.
true. A lot of times people don't think of foliage with their flowers,
But
and
every
it's just an
floor
ad. Yeah,
and every florist needs it. Like, no matter what the color palette is for that wedding that weekend, they also need foliage. You know what
that's
I mean?
right.
So it's like huge. Yeah. So like, yeah, I always say, so like, grow like the thornless raspberries,
I love
grow the
that.
physocarpus, the scented geraniums.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the scented geraniums, I could sell a lot of that too. I'm trying to think of what my other big foliage crops.
So
Blue
how do you
pear.
overwinter? How do you overwinter the scented geranium? Because up there, I think it's way too cold.
I take cuttings. I have to take cuttings. At the end of the season, I'll just go in, take like maybe like one tray of cuttings, and just overwinter them indoors.
Okay, it
Yeah. And
doesn't take
then,
up much space that way, and then
yeah, no, just one tray, and you keep it on a south facing windowsill, especially throughout the winter because there's less light. Yeah, super easy to grow.
wow, that's great. It's a good tip. Um, I I'm curious. How many different flower shops do you wholesale to?
Okay, so I think at one point we were doing about five or six different shops. Um, so what's happened now? So like the whole local flower movement has really taken off in Toronto. Like I'm so lucky to be in like close to Toronto and so close to it, and have like and be in a city where this is really sort of taken off with like the like trendy
Sure.
downtown florists. So we're at the point now where we started our 3 years ago a co-op. So we now have a co-op in the city between the growers and the florists, and we have an online system where we list all of our product, and that so now a lot of product goes through the co-op. So the growers will bring their product in every week, and the florists go and pick it up. They buy it all online. If there's extras, we can bring that, and then that gets sold on consignment while the florists are there. They'll be like, "Oh, this looks nice. Okay, I'll add some of that." So we do a little bit of that, and still some delivery to florists, especially around here for florists who are not in the city. So we still continue to do that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
really changed the past 3 or 4 years for growers, especially. Like it's made it so much more convenient.
well, that and plus, I mean, it cuts way down on your deliveries and all the different, you just go to one place and then drop
Yeah.
everything. And
Mhm.
that's really incredible. Wow. So, as far as, you were talking earlier about things that you've tested or you've been playing around with for new things. And I'm curious if there's anything that you can think of that was sort of up and coming new on the radar, or things that, you tested last year that you planted more of.
Oh, trying to think. Let's see. Oh gosh, I'm gonna probably say this about a million times, but like more dahlias. I just can't, like, I love them. The florists love them. Every year I just add more to like our area, to what we're growing. Because the florists can't seem to get enough of them. And actually, and that's actually like, imported dahlias are not great. Like their petals get damaged in transit. So like, as a local grower, I think we really have that advantage of growing these unusual things that don't transport well. So yeah, dahlias, I always add more. Um, hmm, Ranunculus, like, always growing more of those, because those are becoming well, they've been so trendy and they keep becoming trendy, and like the appetite for them, you can't even keep up.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd
it's
say,
true.
yeah. So just trying new varieties of ranunculus all the time, like just like those color palettes, bringing in new color palettes. I was pretty conservative at first. I was like, no, it has to only be blush, right? But now we're trying all the different all the colors and of ranunculus. Yeah, I'd say dahlias, ranunculus, a lot of new stuff like that.
Yeah, new
There's always going to
varieties.
be like, there's always a new dahlia, sorry, a new zinnia that I'm adding to the collection to start and to grow. Yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question? I
Yeah,
can't. I don't even remember what the
no,
original
it's
question
okay.
was.
It's okay. I noticed on your website you referred to competing with bigger growers and things like that. And I always feel like sometimes people get imposter syndrome, where they feel like they can't compete. They can't figure that out. And I was just kind
Yeah.
of curious that part of your journey, how you approached it, and what you thought. What was your process?
Yeah, so I mean, there are those growers who I mean, they're all amazing. They're out in Niagara and they've got greenhouses, and they're growing like acres of
Right.
like snapdragons and ranunculus and whatnot, and they're great. But yeah, in order for me to like compete with that, and their pricing is really great too, because they grow so much of it. Yeah, I needed that edge. So for example, I would grow like, I love traditional snapdragons, but instead of growing like traditional snapdragons, because the really big greenhouse growers are really good at that. I'll grow like different things. I'll grow like the open faced, like the Chantillis snapdragons, for example, or the Madame Butterflies, which are like the little doubles. So that's one way that, I mean, I sort of like made my mark earlier on. And I think also just like, um, building a relationship with like the florist, like being like that guy that they want to see on a Monday morning or a Wednesday morning, like just dropping
Sure.
stuff off, and making that connection with them. And just like really getting in there. And yeah, and if something's also organic, like they love that, like, um, because we don't use any harmful pesticides here. So that was kind of also gave me an edge, with all the, with the larger growers and the stuff that they can get at the larger wholesalers.
Right.
So yeah, so growing something different, building that relationship with them, be that person they want to buy from and say
Sure.
hello to every week.
Now, I've often wondered, I've seen some people growing Chantilly snaps before,
Mhm.
and um, do you, are you, uh, I'm curious about pricing for them,
Okay.
because, like, do you mind sharing what you sell them for?
Yeah. So one bunch of 10 stems is $12.
Okay. And about how tall are they?
They're pretty good. I get pretty good. Yeah, I know. I've seen some Chantillis that are kind of short, but no, ours are pretty good. Ours, we get really good height on them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would say because of the fact that we're so small scale, and we're not, um, you know, really, we're a little bit exposed. Sorry, we're not exposed. I'm sorry. We're a little bit protected over here because we're not out in like way out in the country, like so many other farms are exposed. We have a little bit of a microclimate here, and
Mm-hmm.
the flowers really like that. So wind will actually impede stem length. So if the flowers are feeling a lot of like wind and whatnot, particularly
Pressure.
a lot of pressure on a large farm, they won't stretch. They just don't. They're like, whoa. They're like, but here we're kind of protected. Like I said, we're like it's almost suburban, really.
Mm-hmm.
We have a little bit of microclimate. It's protected, we really get really good stem length, really good quality in comparison, believe it or not, to some of the larger farms.
That's great.
I feel like I shouldn't say that because I love everybody. I love the larger farms, and that, oh gosh, I'm like, when I'm saying that, I'm realizing what I'm saying, and I'm like, no offense, Cedric. So in that case, like I can charge like $12, which is $1.20 a stem. Whereas like I will see that, Chantillis that maybe didn't grow as well for somebody else, and they're only charging like maybe 80 cents a stem. And I'm like, oh, okay. So sort of a balance, I guess.
Oh, it's knowing your market. It's knowing your market
knowing your
and
market.
yeah. And knowing you got a good quality.
Yeah, knowing your florist. I mean, yeah, that's really important, knowing your florist. I mean, I think like 15 years ago when I first tried to make a go at wholesale, and I went to like before farmers markets, and I would go to local flower shops, especially up here outside of the city. People would look at me like, why am I going to buy flowers from you? Like, why would I buy local flowers? And it wasn't a thing 15 years ago, like local flowers, like people would. And so then that's what sort of led me to, farmers markets. And then like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, things just went nuts. And it's like, I'll buy your flowers. And like, and it was more and it was the downtown florists that took to it really quickly. They were the ones who were really super supportive like years ago. And now the local florists are like, hey, do you remember me? Can I buy some? I'm like, well, I don't know. You didn't want them 15 years ago. You're going to have to get in line.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yes. The seeds of bitterness.
Yeah. Right. No, but my point is just know your buyer, know your florist, know who will pay for your product.
Right. Yeah. And I'm just kidding. Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think so many times, florists are looking for ways to distinguish themselves from maybe a wire service based florist or I don't know. I remember 20 years ago, maybe, at least 20 years ago, one of the biggest complaints with flower shops was grocery stores. And it was like, how do they sell things so cheap? How do they do this? How do they do that? And people forgot that, there's a service they provide. Well, part of that is the design service. And if they have access to flowers like what you grow, what a better way to distinguish your work from competition by incorporating local blooms or products like Chantilly snaps or, the Chartreuse 9 bar. I mean, things like that, which people don't see every day, which only solidifies the relationship you have with your flower shop customers. And I think it's great. I really do. I know it's always interesting to me when you get the seed catalog out and you look at all these flowers. How many varieties of Chantillis do you grow? Do you know
I grow 4.
4? And what are the 4?
The bronze, the pink, the light pink, and the salmon. I've tested every color. So there's the red, which is really sort of robust. It's a really great color, but red's not always a big color, I find, in floristry. So it's like, okay, I won't grow the red. The purple's also really great, but it's like really purple. So
really, I don't think I've ever seen the purple one.
The purple's very purple. I mean, the purple's great for like my everyday retail florists. But then there's like the wedding florists who are like, oh, it's a little bit too purple. So actually that's another good point, is knowing, who your florists are selling to. So like are your florists like wedding and event florists, or are they like everyday retail florists? And that actually will help with crop planning and what colors you grow. So being
an operation the size that you are, or do you actually make all the deliveries?
Yeah, I used to. Yeah, it used to be me, and I mean, it still is. It's still me. My sister has on occasion stepped in. She doesn't like to do it because she's like, "What am I doing?" And I don't. So there has been an occasion or two where she's had to step in and do the delivery for me because I couldn't make it that day. But yeah, it's me. Yeah. In fact, years ago, I used to do like Instagram stories of me like delivering the flowers, and everybody liked those. And then um, I stopped doing them because I had people being like, "Hey, what happened to like the delivery stories?" Sorry, I had people messaging me and being like, "That's not safe," like because I was like doing some
Oh,
the odd story in the car, being like, "Okay, guys, so
while you're
we're driving
driving?
down to." We're driving down to Toronto today. We're delivering to XYZ flower shop. And it was like the funnest like bits to do. And I was like, okay, yeah, people are right. I shouldn't be doing this. And so I stopped doing that years ago. But yeah, it was me. It's me. It's all me. I'm doing the
Well, the
deliveries.
good thing about that to me is you actually are in the stores, you see what people are using, you can talk to them, you get
Mm-hmm.
feedback from them.
Yes.
I know sometimes that is an inconvenience for the actual, the owner to kind of do that, and they, will delegate some of those tasks. But I feel like sometimes there's just nothing better than face-to-face
Yeah.
feedback and just
Mhm.
seeing reactions and questions or comments or
Mhm.
whatever. So,
And every October when I know like, okay, guys, like frost, we get frost here usually mid to late October. So when I know I'm there and it's like the last drop off of the season, I'm like, hey guys, I think we're getting frost like in the next week. Today's the last, probably the last time you'll see me until next April. Like what worked this year? What did you guys love? What
mm,
didn't? And they'll sometimes just give me a list. Oh, and I'll also say, okay, like color palettes, like are you anticipating like that the wedding colors are going to possibly change next year because they've got their ear to the ground. I don't sometimes when it comes to design and color palettes. I mean, I think I don't know, but anyways, yeah, that's no, but that feedback from them and asking them, yeah, at the end of the season, yeah, what worked, what didn't, what do you think's
interesting.
coming up, what colors are gonna be cool next year.
I know it's been a few months. Do you remember any of that feedback from last year?
Yeah, I think not much is changing. I don't know. I'm hearing on one hand some floors saying not much is going to change. It's still going to be,
Right.
lush and brown and pale and then but then some people are saying no, colors coming back, but um yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I
Yeah.
think too, with it's interesting. I think because you don't do markets, you probably don't get impacted by this. But I know a lot of flower farmers that when they do markets and florists, and they try to grow like what I'm going to call the earthy or muddy tones or the brownish kind of vintage looking flowers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the markets think, "Ugh," and the florists think, yay, like they're all excited about
Yes.
it. And you don't have to deal with that since you don't do both.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what do you grow that kind of falls into that palette? Like when people are looking for those kinds of flowers, is there anything in particular that you grow that is sort of like people get all giddy about?
You mean for the wedding and event
Yeah,
florist or for the yeah. Okay, so Lysianthus, if you can grow like the peach Lysianthus, the blush Lysianthus, the brown Lysianthus, there's a couple of browns actually. There's even the slightly different browns. Like that's like, oh my gosh. And field grown Lysianthus are incredible. So a lot of the Lysianthus that the florist will buy from the wholesaler are greenhouse grown
right.
Lysianthus, and their stems are very floppy. They'll oftentimes arrive broken, or they'll like break in the bride's bouquet, which is awkward. You don't want that to happen. Field grown Lysianthus have this huge advantage over like the big greenhouse grown Lysianthus in that their stems are so much more like rigid, and you get like multiple flowers per stem rather than there's that one that's ready to go and then a bunch of buds. You can really, if you disbud, so you just disbud your Lysianthus just before they're about to put on their big display. Just like you just, but I think sometimes some people call it like the king flower, and then it's going to branch out, and then you got like five, and you get like you really impress the pants off your florist like that.
So when let me
So
let's
yeah,
park there for a second because
yeah,
I I I actually had the opportunity to go to Japan a few years ago, and they do a
oh
lot of disbudding with their Lysianthus.
yeah,
So I know I've heard people doing it, but I think this is a great thing to kind of talk about briefly. So, at what point do you decide when to pinch that? Because when you see the other buds coming out, or I've not grown Lysianthus, so
Okay.
I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real sort of hard, fast rule. It's, as you see the bud beginning to sort of the center stem, sorry, the center bud beginning to swell, that's when I'll go in and I'll just like sort of pinch it off.
Okay.
And yeah, so like if you're actually, you can even kind of time it. So like if your Lizzies are growing like too fast and you kind of want them to say, let's say, slow down and hit with like your dahlias, like your end of the season stuff, then you can really sort of let that sort of central flower bloom and that'll slow down all the side buds. On the contrary, if you want your Lizzies to like hurry up, pinch that bud when it's young and small and green, and that'll really get the side buds growing really quickly. So you can kind of play with timing like that,
Oh,
which
that's
is nice too, because
interesting.
then you can even like, yeah, you can even like stagger your crop that way. Like do half of them, I'll pinch half of them right away. So the side buds hit on half of them. And then the other half of my Lizzies, I'll like wait and I won't pinch that central bud initially. And then that gives me a little bit later, the ones that I'm going to deliver alongside with like, the end of the season stuff like dahlias.
Mm. Well, that's a great. I am learning a lot of things today, so thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. It's good.
That's
It's nice to hear.
awesome. Yeah. So when you have when you're growing on half an acre, it's obviously different than if you're growing, like on 10 acres. I'm just curious, how do you prioritize like how you invest in infrastructure or equipment, things like that? How do you make those choices?
Yeah. I mean, we have a drip tape system, so we water everything or most of our beds with drip tape system, and that became something I really wanted to invest in 2016. So 2016 was it was like a terrible year. It was like a nightmarish year. It was actually the driest. We were in a drought, really bad drought. So the driest season we've ever had, ever, like since they've been keeping track.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was so stressful, the drought that year, that I thought, okay, I had drip tape and I was sort of fiddling around with drip tape and on some of the beds. And the following year, 2017, I make sure I had drip tape on everything. You just buy the kits. Because and I would say, don't be afraid of those things. So initially I thought, oh, drip tape, that's for like big growers. I'm like a small
Right.
grower. I don't need drip tape. That's too technical and I'm not going to learn how to use it. And so that really made a big difference, is just having that drip tape, because like I said, I never know when 2016 is going to happen again, but I'm ready for it. So we've invested in that. So the drip tape was great stuff. Investing also initially in landscape fabric to make weed barrier. So that was like a really big, kind of a big expense right off the bat. But just from talking to other growers, I knew that was really something to invest in early on. Like it takes the weed pressure off of doing that extra work and that extra weeding. It really, really helps. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, the landscape fabric, like the weed barrier with the holes in it.
Oh, yeah, I am.
Yeah, you know it? Okay. Yeah, so investing in that is, it seems like a lot initially, but that stuff lasts. Like we've had it for years, 10, 15 years, some of it, rolls of it. And it really is worth it. It'll save you time in the weeding. Yeah.
That's
And
great.
and investing also in like I mentioned, like the low tunnels, like those I build myself and they're super easy to build. Like all you need is a hoop bender, and you can get that from any agricultural shop. You can even buy it online, I think, at Johnny's, and they'll ship it to you. And you're just using like EMT or electrical conduit that you just get at like a hardware store. You're just bending them, you putting those in the ground, and then the plastic. And again, plastic, everyone asks, oh, like what plastic are you using on your low tunnels? I'm like, like what greenhouse plastic? I'm like, it's not even greenhouse plastic. It's like construction plastic from the hardware store. I
Oh,
don't know what it's
yeah. It's
called.
like drop
Like,
claws almost and things. It's
yeah, and it's just like a huge roll of it. Is it weeping tile? No, I don't. It's something for construction plastic. I don't know. It's big rolls of it just go and and yeah, it's like so stuff like that, and yeah, investing in things like that will really help.
Yeah, yeah. It's always interesting because I know when we started out growing in one on one of the smaller piece of property, we it was hard to get irrigation tape in at first, and like what you described, it was something I never needed before, so it was kind of, we just did overhead watering or something like that, and then of course I hated it because I felt like it just promoted disease and it promoted other issues. Eventually we switched, and it was, I don't know, to me it was a water saver and a time saver and everything else. I can't imagine though, the longest drought ever and however many recorded years. That's got to have been scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's been
Um,
since 80 years now that they've been keeping track of precipitation. I think it was 75, 80 years. And it was like the driest since. Yeah. It was, yeah, I'll be honest, it was a tough year. Like I like talked to my sister. I was like, at the end of the year, I was like, what am I doing? Oh, I need to invest in drip tape. I need an irrigation system. So yeah. So that forced me to do that.
and so I imagine because of where you're located, do you just tap into city water or do you have
Yeah, so
well? Yeah.
I'm really lucky to have a municipal water source. A lot
Uh-huh.
of growers are on well water. So when
Yeah.
their wells went dry, like oh, I can't even imagine what that would have been like that year. So
Ugh, wait. Yeah, that would have been scary for sure. Earlier I had a phone conversation this week with somebody, and we were talking about co-ops and collectives and all this kind of stuff. How has that been with the cooperative that you're a part of? Um, a lot of times people are nervous about this because all of a sudden it's like you end up partnering with, they still have that mindset of competition, versus kind of just everybody working together. How does that work, and how has that been, at least for you? If I don't know,
mhm.
as a group, has that been received well from the other flower farmers, or how has
Yeah,
that gone over?
yeah, absolutely. Because I think that as a small grower, that's a challenge is just distribution and getting that product to the market. So the co-op has been like instrumental in that. And I don't think that there is any sort of sense of competition because the appetite for these kinds of things that we're growing, like we can't sate it. Like it's just they're just like more. We need more foxglove. We need, and like foxglove, you can't import that. Like those trumpets would get crushed. So yeah, like no, I don't. Yeah, there's no competition at all. We're trying. We can't even keep up with this demand. So yeah, and yeah, it's been huge. Like just industry acceptance and getting that product to the florist, getting it to the market. The co-op has been amazing. It's been great. There's no sort of like. In fact, we're all friends. In fact, we were just on a Zoom meeting 2 or 3 nights ago, and like our coordinator of the co-op was like, okay, so guys, we were all growers. So it was like a grower meeting. She's like, the florists want to like meet you guys. We had to do like a meet and greet, like as soon as we can, like whenever COVID allows us to meet. Like all the florists want to meet all the growers and say hi and see where this stuff's going. So it's like amazing, like the sense of community that it's been fostering.
That's great. I love that. And you keep saying things that make me just want to know more. Foxglove, it's interesting. I have tried shipping in foxglove before in boxes
Okay.
because on the
Yeah.
wholesale level, and yeah, it's nothing like you guys make it look so amazing when you're holding your arm full of foxglove, and I'm just jealous, wishing I could have those. And I think, are there certain varieties that you grow that are better? Because I always think of foxglove as a biennial. You plant it this
Yeah.
year, you don't get a
Yeah.
flower till next year. But I know there's
Mhm.
new varieties out there. And I'm just, do you know the varieties that you're growing right now?
Yeah, so the varieties that I'm growing right now are first year flowering plants. We grow them like annuals, and we treat them like annuals. So we grow so it's the Dalmatian series and the Camelot series. So
Oh,
we
okay.
grow the Dalmatian cream, which is like a cream colored one with like dark speckles, and the Dalmatian peach,
One I
gorgeous.
love. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Camelot series is really nice too. So grow, if you're going to grow the camelots, you can grow the mix. I always say, be careful when you're growing mixes because you'll get stuck with like Pepto pink, bubblegum pink. And you
It's
get
a
stuck with
weird
all the bad
purple.
colors. Yeah, you get stuck with all the bad colors. But when it comes to the camelots, if you grow the mix, you'll actually get like a really pretty color palette. So the Dalmatians and the camelots for foxglove, and those are first year flowering varieties.
So are they like 120 days or something like that? I mean, they're
Yeah, they are I think it's about 5 months from seed to flower, 4 to 5 months, depending on the heat also. And a lot of people think they have to start them like about, so we recommend about 10 weeks before you plant them out, before your last frost date. But I've been experimenting with growing them a little bit later and getting some foxglove like at the end of the season. And that's actually been really good because foxglove tends to like, rain and cooler temperatures. And that's what we're getting in like September, October. And the foxglove are actually looking really good later in the season than they are in like, June or July with earlier seeded foxglove.
So, and I always, again, when we're talking about planning and things like that, succession planning is so important, I think. I'm really glad you mentioned that because that was my thing is how early do you start it indoors? And then you said 10 weeks and then you'll have a bloom. Gosh, so that means you're getting flowers starting what, in July? Is that right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
wow. And then
For foxglove anyways.
Yeah. That's and are they I've not grown those right. It's funny, I bought the seed one year and then I don't think I ever planted them. It's a really sad story. But anyway, how tall do the Dalmatians get compared or the camelots you said compared to traditional foxglove?
Yeah, so they need a lot of like you need to irrigate them. So if you don't irrigate them, you're going to get pretty short. You're going to get fairly short stems. You're not going to get like that like lovely stem that you would get on like a biennial foxglove. But if you water them, you'll get like 3 foot stems at least.
And how many stems per plant, roughly?
So you get that one initial stem that run, and so when you go in and you cut, and then you'll get like a second flush of shorter stems that are still harvestable and that the florist will still buy. You just, I don't charge them as much. But definitely you get a second flush from the Dalmatians and Camelots if you cut them.
Awesome. Well, next time I get my seed, I'll definitely have to plant them.
Yeah, definitely for sure. They're so beautiful.
I love them so much. I often like to kind of wind down our episodes by asking for that piece of advice question. And I always, and I hate putting you on the spot, but I feel like you've had some good experience. And so it can be for anybody. It can be for something that meant a lot to you or something just for any other flower farmers out there, whatever you'd like to share.
Yeah, I would say like in business, trust your gut. Like your business best, and like I've done things that people are like, and it's like, yeah, it actually works for me. It turns out. So I would say in business, like trust your gut. Know what you're doing. You've raised this little baby, this little business of yours. So trust your gut. And another bit of advice I would say is get creative. So I do workshops, so that really helps. So I do, we do like floral design workshops throughout the year. During the holidays, we do wreath workshops. So don't just like focus on one aspect of your business. Like be creative and bring in other aspects to get your business growing. So like workshops, I'm trying to think. CSAs. I don't do CSAs, but I know a lot of growers who do that. And
my gosh, you do so many things though. I mean, I'm like right now as we're talking, you have a seed sale going on.
Tell
us about that.
Yeah, so we've got a seed sale growing. We've been doing seeds for years now. It started off maybe about 5 years ago with just sweet peas. We were just doing sweet pea seeds and like small amounts of tulip bulbs and Customers love them, and every year we kind of expand and grow a little bit, or make sell a little bit more. And yeah, so this has probably been our biggest year yet. So we have, I think, 100, just over 110 different seed varieties online. And then we have ranunculus and anemones. We've got those going out to home gardeners, also shipping those right across Canada. And yeah, and then in April, so something to look forward to. In April, we're going to do the big dahlia sale, gladiolus bulbs. Yeah, so we've got, yeah, I mean.
So are you allowed to ship to the US, or does it have to only be for
okay,
your
so
Canadian
we can ship,
neighbors?
yeah, so we can ship seeds to the US. We can't ship bulbs or corms, unfortunately, because it's my understanding, like, bulbs and corms come into contact with soil, and so there's always that risk of spreading disease. But yeah, seeds, we can ship those to the US.
Okay, wow. Well, I'm gonna have to get on and see what's there, because the seed sales have been on a little while, and for everybody in Canada, I know dahlias and gladiolas. I know you shared that with me earlier, and I was really surprised, because that's one of those flowers that I think should be given more attention, and I was excited to hear that you actually sell them. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, I'm on a mission to bring back the gladiolus. Well, you know what? It's also just the way that you use them in floral design. I think that needs to change. And yes. I think a lot of the florists, when I would visit them every week and I would drop off flowers, and I'm like, I would see their arrangements. I'm like, that's a gladiolus in there. I'm like, oh my God, you made it look so good. Yeah, one of the things that they do, and they notice, is sort of like the tip of the gladiolus, like that green part that kind of like,
sure, the buds.
Curly. Yeah, they'll pinch the top of that, and it kind of just sort of compacts the stem a little bit, so it looks more like a focal flower rather than like this long, like, funeral flower.
Right.
So, I think it's just the way that you use them, and then grow the right colors. Like, don't grow like, that highlighter orange or highlighter yellow. Like, grow like the peach and the pinks and the paler, prettier colors.
Well, and I know there used to be a lot of really pretty varieties that were kind of like green, like a chartreuse with a hot pink throat, or just different shades of colors, not just the basic red, white, pink, purple. I mean, I don't know. To me, I agree with you. Gladiolas need to have a comeback, and I don't know. I feel like they kind of got a bad rap being more of a funereal flower than an everyday flower, but I think with the right colors, I think it can be. So, do you sell a lot of varieties of them?
We do 5 varieties, 5 of my favorite colors.
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, the Antonio mix. So
yeah. Hey, maybe that's we'll do a mix. We don't do a mix, but I will now. Maybe. I don't know.
I hadn't planned on asking you this, but I'm going to now, that just because you said that. I know a lot of people when they I love following you on social media. I always think it's what you do is fresh, and it just is not. Sometimes I think people try to be so serious, and I'm like, I think we have enough of that in the world, and so I'm just kind of curious how. I know you mentioned earlier your niece. Was it your niece that set up your Instagram account?
Yeah.
So now I feel like you're this. Okay, so I'm gonna say it. I feel like you're this powerhouse guy on Instagram now.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, so tell us how that's working out for you. Like, are you getting great feedback? Are you getting a lot of engagement? I notice you do a lot of reels, which I know sometimes people. That are in social media get a little, obsessed about reels, like the importance of them. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on all that and how it goes.
Yeah, it's funny though with reels. I find that now that I've started using them, I'll actually lose followers when I post a reel, because I think that I don't know. I think that they're expecting like all the flower farmers to have the same sort of aesthetic and the same sort of like types of posts, like the flowers are so great, you know what I mean? I'm just like, oh, okay, like do something like funny, I don't know, get out there. So yeah, and I think because of that, I started doing TV segments, and I think that came from my social media. found me there, and so now I do like gardening segments on TV for like a local Canadian morning show,
Uh-huh.
and so I've been doing that for about 4 years. And
Really?
actually, yeah. And then this past year, I don't know. Do you guys have the Marilyn Dennis show in the States?
I've not heard of it, but that doesn't mean anything.
No. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then she's actually American, but then I guess her show is just Canadian. So I just did her show this past week, so that's like a new thing.
So what did you
Yeah,
do
I
on the
don't know.
show?
It's funny because it's winter. We did houseplants. We did a segment on
Okay.
houseplants, and it airs on, well, Thursday. I'll post about that when it comes out.
I'll have to look
I,
at what's it called again?
it's the Marilyn Dennis show. I'll put the link on Instagram, Scott.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. See, well, nowadays with all the streaming services, I can't imagine that we can't find it somewhere. So
I know, yeah, and I believe, I'm pretty sure. So I know that the segment will be available on their website, so you can even go to their website and watch it there.
Cool.
But yeah, like the whole Instagram thing, like it's funny because I was just posting stuff for fun. I never thought that it could like, I didn't set out for it to be like an actual tool for anything, for helping. But yeah, it's been helpful. Like, and sometimes even if I'm growing something and it's not selling, I'll post a picture of it and the florist will be like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Well, you can have some next week." So it's even a good tool for stuff like that.
Well, people have such a hard time visualizing things sometimes, or they don't know what something is, or they just think they know what it is, and they're like they haven't seen it in all its glory yet.
Yeah.
And I just think that's where social media is a big asset. So
yeah, and the gladiolus, I posted a few arrangements using gladiolus, and you can't imagine like the number of people that were like, that I've never seen gladiolus used like that. Like, that's genius. Like, okay, like you're changing my mind. So
that's cool. I love that. Well, Antonio, thank you so much for being on
Thanks,
the
Scott.
Flower Podcast.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.